Hello, I'm Josh George. Picking against the spread, week 1 here. Just a little spread preview, picking against the spread kind of a deal here. And I'm going to pick the top 12 actual games, head-to-head matchups, score and all, on another video coming up later. UTEP and New Mexico State is the first game. You can see where UTEP is favored by 7.5 points. That means they're losing 7.5 points, essentially, according to the spread. They were 3-5 last season. They have 11 starters coming back on offense, and that's huge. And New Mexico, well, they were 1-1 last season. They played 2 games in El Paso, one against Dixon and one against Tarleton. Not a lot of experience. Honestly, I don't think New Mexico is going to be very good this year. I think they're probably going to lose. Will they lose by the 7.5? I'm going to go ahead and pick UTEP to beat that spread, but it's not a game I would necessarily bet on going into week 1, as both teams could really underperform. Now, next, Yukon, who's a team that didn't play football last year. They're getting 27.5 points, as Fresno State is favored by that amount. Jake Henderson and his coach have put out a lot of statements this year. There's been a lot of tweets and things about him in practice, how he's improved his accuracy, how he's improved his game management. They're really trying to sell that, and they really seem to be trying to talk about their O-line, question mark. Look, that's a high number to make. That's a lot that you've got to beat a team by. And I don't know if you can do it with a game manager. I know UConn's been one of the worst teams in the country as of late, as of the past few years, but are they going to lose by 28 or something? That, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit closer, so I might take UConn in this one, but it's not one that I would invest in. Nebraska comes in to face Illinois, losing 7.5 points here for Nebraska. Bielema, he's not bad. He's 2-6 in openers against the spread, and Illinois has been 6-7 over their last couple games against the spread, and they got beat 41-7 last year by Wisconsin in the opener. So, really don't know how they're going to do. Nebraska needs a win in the opener for sure, and if they do, it'll probably be by at least a touchdown. So I'd go ahead and take Nebraska in this one. Now, Rutgers and Temple. Temple only has 2 starters on defense, and Rutgers is favored by 13.5, which is just very interesting. Rutgers is 65th in Lindsey's preseason poll, which puts them in the middle of the country, 65 out of 130 in FBS play. And even though they're 104th in total offense in 2020, they could really come out and beat that spread, especially with this defense. If they can start get in rhythm and start putting up points, they could really start their season off on a high note. So I think Rutgers, this might be a surprising one to take Rutgers in. Now, this is one that I would avoid here, Boise State and Central Florida. It's only 4 points, 2 new coaches in this one. Bachmeier might be the biggest difference maker and the biggest reason you want to bet on Boise State, the familiar quarterback there, but he's not necessarily familiar with the system, so stay away from this one. If you have to, go Boise State, though. You got South Florida and North Carolina State. North Carolina State has won 7.4 games over their last 5 years under David Dorn. So they've done fairly well. Where South Florida comes into the year ranked 114th and gave up 39.9 points per game last season. Not very good. I think North Carolina State can win by 2 to 3 touchdowns, probably maybe even 3 to 4. So I would take North Carolina to beat the spread in this one. Now, ECU and Appalachian State. Appalachian State is only 75th in the 247 talent composite with 23 3-stars as their top prospects. So, I don't know. And the last time that Appalachian State won a opener or a bowl game spread was 2015 in the Beef O'Brady's Bowl against Ohio, where they were favored by 14. And it's going to be interesting with a lot of new faces there at ECU. And I just lean towards App State just in general picking the spread, So I'm going to go with App State. Bowling Green in Tennessee. Now, Bowling Green is 127th in the nation, so that's pretty much at the bottom. But Heupel has a lot of new faces, had a lot of transfers, had a lot of turnover. The fact that they're going to have to cover 33 points, that's, to me, is just an incredible amount. I don't think they can do it. I would stay away from this. But, man, Tennessee is getting a lot of respect going into the season opener with that giant spread. Ohio State and Minnesota. Now, P.J. Fleck rolled the boat, Scally Ma. Look, they're getting 13.5 points here, and that's very tempting. But Ohio State is coming in 5th in the nation with offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson, who is one of the best tight end coaches in the nation, who has Olave and Wilson at wide receiver. Even though we don't know who the quarterback is, that number should not tempt you. You should definitely go Ohio State on this one, because they're going to win by 2 touchdowns in that one. I would almost guarantee it. And they really want to squash that notion that P.J. Fleck is not back and that the whole row the boat thing. They don't want to, because once that gets out there, no, they want to establish that they are the best team in the Big Ten and win by a couple touchdowns. So, yeah, safe bet, go Ohio State. North Carolina and Virginia Tech here. Look, Justin Fuente is on the hot seat with Virginia Tech. It's come out at 247 Sports. It was broke by the late kick broke it. A lot of people have said it. There was even a press conference to say he's not on the hot seat or not going to get fired, but he is on the hot seat. Of course, Mac Brown, everyone's really happy with him and how he's done this second go-round at North Carolina. And Sam Howell is ranked 1 in some polls and 2 in other polls as far as preseason Heisman favorites. Although North Carolina was 5-6 against the spread last season and 26-23 over the last 5 years. That's pretty much 500 against the spread. And that 5.5, they're not losing that many points, so I'd probably go North Carolina. But this might be one you might want to stay away from, just in general, because even though it seems you should go North Carolina, they don't do as well against the spread as you think. Now, Michigan State and Northwestern. This game's nobody has really got a finger on who's going to be the quarterback. Is it going to be Russo or who's it going to be kind of for Michigan State? No one can really get a thumb on this post-COVID Michigan State team. And in 2019, Northwestern was 3-9. Last year, they were 7-2. And they started out, they scored 43 points in last year's opener and beat a Maryland team that was minus 11 points. So they're minus 4.5. I expect them maybe to pour it on and end up beating that spread. So I'm going to go Northwestern to beat the spread against Michigan State. OU and Tulane. Tulane has 10 starters on defense and one of the best running backs in the nation, and Ty Speeds. He's definitely one of the best group of 5 running backs to watch, and he'll be fun in that option attack. But OU is Phil Steele's national champion this year, and in 4 openers, Lincoln Riley has scored at least 30 points or more, and I would definitely expect that. but that 24.5 is a lot to cover. It really comes down to, are you going to bet on Grinch defense or not? And to tell you the truth, in the opener, I would not. They lost 2 of their first 3 games last year, so I don't think I would quite bet on that spread for OU. Now, Louisiana Monroe and Kentucky. This game's just a really interesting game when it comes down to it, because Terry Bowden is a guy that really cares about spreads. He really goes into it and is really going to go into his job this year, as he's not going to be favored in a lot of games, and he's probably not going to win a lot of games. So beating the spread could really bolster his career at Louisiana Monroe. But Kentucky is, they're picked 3rd or 4th in their division. It depends on really who you're looking at. I think Athlon's got them at 3rd in that division, and a lot of polls have them top 5 in the SEC. But they're going to have to beat this team by more than 30. I don't know if they can do that, so I would take Louisiana Monroe in this spread. Now, Penn State and Wisconsin. Wisconsin minus 4.5 here. When you look at Wisconsin, they have 8 starters back on defense, and that's definitely going to be the strength of this team, as they have a new quarterback and could have totally new leadership on offense. But James Franklin and Clifford have been a great head coach quarterback combination over the past couple of seasons. Last year was not so good for Penn State, but in the last 5 years, 2 of their openers have gone to overtime, and 2 of their 3 openers. And they've only beaten the spread 3 out of the 5 times over the last 5 seasons for Penn State. So I'm going to take Wisconsin in the spread for this game. Stanford and Kansas State. Now, Stanford had to halt summer practices due to COVID-19 outbreak in their area thanks to the Delta variant. But testing and vaccines brought in by Condoleezza Rice and a system set up to get this entire team vaccinated, at least all of them that wanted it, so to speak, and a lot of them ended up getting it, really turned this team around and is going to allow them to play football this year, which really wasn't a question for a lot of teams, and they're actually favored by a point in this game. So if they win this game, I would thank Condoleezza Rice, but I would bet on Chris Klieman in Kansas State, who was upset in his opener last season, and I think will definitely take down Stanford, and will, by winning the game, will beat the spread. Alabama and Miami. Now, this looks like a big number for some, but in 2016, Alabama was minus 12, 152-6. In 2017, they were minus 7, 124-7. In 18, they were minus 24, 151-14. In 2019, they were minus 32 and 143-3 in their opener. So Alabama consistently beats the spread. I know they didn't last year against Missouri, but it was a COVID year. So I would definitely take Alabama to beat the spread, even though I know King and Rambo are a good quarterback-receiver combination, and King is a mobile quarterback, which does seem to give Nick Saban some troubles, but mobile quarterbacks give everyone troubles. I still think Alabama will win by 3 touchdowns. Okay, Indiana and Iowa. Coach Allen has been a good coach. He was 9-3 in 2019 against the spread, and undefeated in 2020 against the spread, where Iowa at minus 4. When they're at minus 7, they're 5-3 against the spread over the last 6 seasons, but they were 0-2 last year against the spread in those situations. So I'm going to take Indiana against the spread in this game. Now, West Virginia and Maryland. See, West Virginia was the most inconsistent team in college football on the road in the past 3 seasons, and Tagovailoa is still quarterback at Maryland, even though they only put up 3 points in their opener. They're definitely going to want to correct that and do better. So I would expect Maryland to maybe even outscore and outright win this game, but definitely to beat the spread against West Virginia. Miami and Cincinnati. Miami of Ohio, that is. Cincinnati, I find it funny that they're getting more points than Alabama is against a Miami team. So that's hilarious. But, of course, with revamped rosters at NCAA 14, Cincinnati's A- on offense and A- on defense puts them at the highest rated group of 5 team in NCAA 14. So that's, to me, that I find that fascinating. But can they end up beating the spread? Can Fickle earn his nickel? I don't know. I want to bet on it. 24 points is a huge win. I think they'll probably end up winning, but not by 24. That's why I would stay away. If I had to, I might even bet on Miami of Ohio, because that's a lot for Cincinnati to cover. Now, La Tech, coached by Skip Holtz, against Mike Leach's wonderful offense at Mississippi State. Will it continue to be as wonderful as it has been? To tell you the truth, they were after that big opener against LSU, they were kind of shut down in SEC play. Can Skip Holtz figure out how to shut it down like some other SEC schools ended up doing last season? To tell you the truth, that's a lot at 26.5. That's a lot of points to cover. So I would go on ahead and take La Tech in this one, but it's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. Now, Central Michigan and Missouri. With this one's really intriguing because Eli Drinkowitz, he has beat the spread every year as a head coach in his season opener, including against Alabama last season. And according to Lindsay, Central Michigan is 99th overall coming into the season. So Missouri only has to win this one by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to take that for sure. They'll probably win by 3 or 4. I mean, they could really blow this team out. I think Eli Drinkowitz is going to blow them out of the water. So, UMass, the worst team in college football over the last 3 seasons with combined records. They're getting 37.5 points against Pittsburgh, who has Kenny Pickett, who's been there forever. He's been quarterback for a long time. Can they score 40, though? That is the question. I'm sure they'll score 40. I don't know if their defense will hold them. I might go Pittsburgh if I had to, but I would not turn on the TV and watch that game. I would just look at the final score and see it. It'll probably be like 52-7 or something like that. So take Pittsburgh. Now, here's a really interesting one. As the Ragin' Cajun of Louisiana, where they got 11 points last year against a Big 12 opponent in Iowa State and ended up winning the game outright 31-14. Where they are minus 9.5, which is less than last year. So they could win this game outright. And I'll talk more about this game on my actual week 1 predictions. But last year Texas was 5-5 against the spread and 0-3 in spreads that were under 10 points over the last 3 seasons. So I'm going to take Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, to beat the spread. Now, San Jose. San Jose is a decent team. They're picked second in the Mountain West by Phil Steele, Lindsay, and Athlon, and at least the top 3 in most places. Where USC started the year 5-0, but in 4 of their games last season, they were within a touchdown. So that's really interesting. 16 points may be a lot to cover, and there's a lot of new faces on USC that they got through the transfer portal. Now, it is one of the most talented teams. It's rated number 1 in the Pac-12 for most talented teams. But I would pick USC to beat the spread just because of their talent, but it could be really close. Purdue, I'm going to pick Purdue to beat the spread in this one because Oregon State has not beat the spread in over 6 years in openers and hasn't won an opener in 5 years. Now, Braum is on the hot seat. At least that's what a lot of people say, and he's got to win 6 games to get off the hot seat. And the spread is really something fans are going to look like to determine his job and things like that. And he has a top 5, top 10 wide receiving room in the country, and defensive backs are not something Oregon State seems to have in flux. So Purdue probably wins this one by 7 or 14 or a lot more than the spread. So I got Purdue. Texas Tech and Houston. Wells is trying to emphasize defense at Texas Tech, which really hasn't worked. But Dana Holgorsen doesn't have De'Aaron King. I mean, his whole system at Houston really hasn't worked. A lot of people said he hasn't had time, but this is a really tough opener against a power conference, of course. Trying to join the Big 12 as they've been allegedly offered a spot, or seeing what's going to happen with that, is really going to motivate Houston. But I don't know if they can if they can keep it close. And I think that spread's really small. They might win outright, but that's too small of a spread to bet on Houston, believe it or not. So I'm going to go Texas Tech. Baylor and Texas State. Now, last time Baylor had a big spread was in 2019, and they were minus 42, and they almost covered it. They were 3 points away from it, where Texas State hasn't won a spread opener in 3 seasons. So I'm going to take Baylor in this one. Now, Florida Atlantic against the Florida Gator. Dan Mullen said that the spread is something he looks at. It's something that the NFL looks like, and it's something that is vital to him and showing growth in his athletes and his program. And Emory Jones, the quarterback there, is very used to his system and has been compared to Dak Prescott. And Mike Stoops was one of the worst defensive coordinators in 2015 through 2016, and he is now the defensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic. So I'm going to pick Florida to win by 25 plus and beat the spread. This game, if you're going to bet Georgia, because Clemson is minus 4 points. But this is a coin flip game here, and one that I'll analyze more in my upcoming prediction video where I predict all the games for this week. But if I had to take a guess, I would bet Georgia. I would bet on Georgia if I had to bet right now, because Georgia could win this one outright. And if it's within a field goal, if it's within 3 points or less, Georgia's gonna win the spread and win you the bet. Now, Northern Illinois and Georgia Tech. This game's semi-intriguing spread-wise because Georgia Tech's actually not losing that much when you look at it. Coach Collins and Thomas have been really good at Georgia Tech for a couple years now. They've really got their system in place, and they pulled the surprise of the year, beating Florida State last season. So, I think they should definitely come out and have a good opener this year. And NIU is picked as one of the worst teams in the MAC this year. So bet Georgia Tech for this one. This Texas A&M team is getting a lot of respect by that minus 30. I know Kent State is a Group of 5 team playing an SEC, and Group of 5s almost never win those matchups. So A&M will almost surely win this game, but trotting out a freshman quarterback that is inexperienced in his first game, a couple interceptions or a fumble or just a poor performance or rotating quarterbacks, you're not going to beat the spread. So I'm going to take Kent State to beat the spread against A&M. LSU and UCLA. Now, something I find really interesting is Chip Kelly at UCLA is 0-7 in non-conference games, not openers, games. And the last time the last time UCLA beat the spread and won a major non-conference game was when they played against Texas A&M, an SEC opponent, and ended up coming back, and that ended up A&M ended up changing head coaches to Jimbo Fisher because of that game. So Ed Orgeron is on the hot seat for LSU. It could be one of those cases where Chip Kelly saves his job, ends up winning outright, but I think LSU and their talent, I think their wide receivers get back to it. I know they've been 5-5 in spreads 5 or less over the last 5 seasons. So 5 is a magic number, and I think LSU wins by 5 and beats the spread. BYU and Arizona. Now this game's really interesting to me, as you're giving an Arizona team basically 12 points. If they can win by 12, they'll beat the spread. I know they're 83rd in the preseason poll, and the FPI has them 99th, but when you look at their record projection from the FPI, it says 6-6 is their average record when they ran through all the simulations. And this is a game I feel like when looking at their schedule preview, which I've got Pac-12 prediction video if you'd like to watch it, And this is one that I think they have to win. So I'm going to go ahead and take Arizona to at least beat the spread in this game. Now, Notre Dame and Florida State. Look, Notre Dame was number 1 in offensive line recruiting for this class, but they're also going to have the second youngest offensive line in what I consider Power 5 football. I know they're an independent, but FSU is going to have the youngest. So this game's going to be really interesting. It's going to come down to how bold will McKenzie be at quarterback for Florida State, and how much pressure will he be under, and which quarterback really can perform better. Can the Wisconsin transfer and Conan light the world on fire and light up Florida State? This one I'd stay away from, though. I know the bet. A lot of people look at the brands and say, "Oh, some people will say Florida State they can come within 10 of this game. Let's go Florida State." And a lot of people are going to say, "Well, Florida State's line's been really bad, and Florida State's, they haven't played up to that brand. Surely Notre Dame will win by 10." But here's the thing. Their O-lines are really even. This game could be really even. I think the bet might be Florida State, just in general, but one that I would not touch with a 10.5-foot pole. Now, Ole Miss getting minus 8.5 against Louisville. Louisville is 38th in the 247 talent composite, but they're picked at the bottom half of the ACC in almost all the magazines this year, and a lot of the polls this year. A lot of the articles I've read have said that they're going to do that bad. Other videos, it just doesn't look like it's going to be their year. They may only win 4 or 5 games this year, but they're going to be close. They're getting 8 points. Can they beat that spread? I think that Louisville could beat that spread. I know that Ole Miss is scoring 40 points per game on average, but where's the defense? I think if Ole Miss has defense, they're going to beat almost every spread this season. But I don't think that they do, so I'm going to pick Louisville to beat the spread, but maybe not win outright. I'm Josh George. This was my spread prediction preview.